Wow, and just like that, we're live. There's no countdown. All right.
You're at it.
All right.
Mhm.
Hello, 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 my friends. Thank you for watching Person Behind the Pages, the show where we get to know the people that make the things we love. I'm joined today by Kaden Love. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing good. And it looks like we're also already joined by Bo. Let's go. Bring out Dr. Love.
Always
It's a little
reliable.
right. That's his name for Caden. I love it. Hey, Bo. Thanks for being here. All right, so yeah, I'm playing with StreamYard for the first time. So if there's anything weird, you guys let me know. But I think we're good to go. Let me know, Bo, how things are looking so far. Um, so yeah, man, congratulations again, Caden. Just released your book just
Thank you.
days ago, right?
Yeah, it still hasn't been a week, which is pretty cool. We're still kind of running on that release high, so
Right? Yeah, yeah.
hmm
So feeling pretty good, feeling on the high. Not a lot of anxiety at this point, right? It's all you feel like you're over the hurdles at this point, I imagine, right?
yeah, like it's honestly now it's just kind of waiting for people to finish it. And
Mm-hmm.
like I know that I know a lot of people are waiting for their Kickstarter fulfillments and physical copies to do it. But yeah, it's just kind of hoping that things take off, hoping people like it and recommend it to a friend because that's all I can really do now. Just it's out there. I have done my part. I'll try
Yeah.
to promote it without being so annoying.
That's the trick, right? That's the
Yeah.
trick. Well, I definitely want to get into marketing a little bit, but
hmm
before we get into that, I want to talk about the book a little bit. This is my plan for today, guys. I want to talk about the book, talk about kind of the process, see how Caden makes this magic happen, and then I want to talk more about Caden himself, get to know him, talk about uh, the world traveling he's done and the long distance running he's done, which both are kind of amazing. But yeah, the first place is we're going to talk about your book. Um, hey, Caleb, how's it going? Um, yeah. So, Caden, first of all, how did you come up with the title Elegy of a Fragmented Vineyard? I mean, what a name, right?
hmm Um, if you've read the book or people that have read a little bit, I like when people say I have poetic prose because I do like something like that. I'm not saying that I'm Patrick Rothfuss at all, but I like giving cool, like just cool sounds to it. And I battled with the title for a long time. Um, and it was something I thought about when I ran. Like when I run, I listen to books, and sometimes I get distracted because I'll think about my book and like my writing. And I remember, like, I don't know if I can remember some of the other names I had for it. Um, I really wanted to do like a, s- a song. Like I like the idea of song, but without being a song of ice and fire. I like the word
Mhm.
hymn, which I may use for book three. We'll see. And for those of you that backed my Kickstarter, you can see the title of book two also includes a song, and we're getting close to where I'll reveal that. And it, it's very representative of what happens in the story. So I guess there's a lot of reasons why I thought of it, but a vineyard is supposed to represent the land in this, that these people are all working towards something. And the fragmented vineyard, it's kind of, these nations that have broken up and are starting to war against each other. And it's an elegy, it's a sad song. It's the mourning because of this loss of unity. That's that's the emotion I kind of tried to get there. It's not the battle of this or this guy's name. It's a lamentation of people going at each other.
Sad song. Yes,
Yeah.
going at each other. Yes, that definitely seems to fit. So, one of the things I also wanted to do in the beginning of the stream is actually read the first page that you had here on your Kickstarter. So,
hmm
I'm going to go ahead and do that now.
Okay.
Fenmir stood with aching knees, holding an infant's corpse in his bloodied hands. Cherrick, forgive me. His palms shook as he laid the child to rest on the surgeon's table beside the intestinal segment that he harvested from its abdomen. He repeated the mantra that followed each harvest. I am not at fault. This is the will of the Zeisman. He rinsed his hands alongside his forceps and scalpel, placing them in the polished steel basin. Viscous crimson mixed with water as it ran down his dark hands. Once clean, he brushed his silver dreads back with moistened palms. He had only seen 46 years, yet his experience had aged him. Guilt stung him, whispering, this child would not have grown to wield divine powers, grown to carry a legacy from proud parents, grown to live. Purred those Zaysmans and their inhumane law, purred the harvesting courts that forced me to harvest the third bough of these gifted children. No child could survive a harvest, yet the Zaysman justified it in the name of progress. His eyes wandered to the harvested intestine and the open abdomen. A second umbilical cord that connected to a third bowel, the cardinal sign of a gifted birth. A blessing for the 4 courts who harvested, and a death sentence for the youngling. Thank Cherik, we Chushmen have our allies in the court Teosh, the Chiosmen, to oppose this brutality. 2 courts in opposition were not enough to sway the other 4 towards mercy. He thought he'd grown desensitized after 4 years of harvesting. Still, tears rolled down his dry face, complementing his bloodshot eyes. He did not cry with each harvest, but today was one such occasion. His shoulders convulsed with each sob as he hid watery eyes from the macabre image. What a scene, man. Like, what a way to open a book, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Oof. What feedback have you got on kind of your open? I know you've had like some reviews already.
Yeah. The critical side of me, it looks, and there's a lot of world building thrown in there. I'm kind of throwing the different political systems, and honestly, that's been toned down a lot. The first book, like first few drafts, were so heavy with it, and that's as simple as I can get it. And it gives you 2 things that I love: just the real shock factor, and you're saying this is a world that I've done a lot to establish. And I really want to sell people on everything that this novel includes, but not to my own horn, but that if you're the right person, some people might be deterred from this. They read that and they're like, okay, nope, I'm not even touching that.
Right.
But a lot of people will be like, okay, I'm sucked in right at the start. And I mean, it does set the tone. That is,
Right.
as the overarching theme is this conflict between harvesting and not harvesting. And so right there, you have a moral dilemma. And I think moral dilemmas are something that gives a lot of interest to books.
Yeah, I think that's actually really smart. Like, I think it's a good thing that the person that's going to be turned off by the story and the things that are going on is going to get turned off on that first page. So they're not gonna get into like halfway through the book and then be like, wait, this is awful, and then leave like a terrible review, So I think that part is, like that's actually clever. But man, yeah, like what a scene. It's definitely like the shock value is there, but I think in a good way, Yeah, pretty nice. We talk about title. How did you get the initial idea for this book, and how long has this book been like percolating in the back of your brain?
The initial idea was the idea of the courts, these 6 different lands that each focus on a single virtue and go to the extreme. For example, we have the Sleftmen, Court Sleft. These people focus on humility, and they will give away all their money that, like, they'll only keep enough to sustain them for a week, which just causes poverty. These people are trying to be so humble that their altruism is destroying them. And that's what I thought was kind of cool. You have these great qualities that are both, their qualities and their flaws. And that was the initial idea. And I was going with that when I first started thinking about an idea. I don't know really if I was thinking like, I'm going to write a whole book and just go like that. I just started kind of writing, and I had that, and I needed a magic system. And those went together, and it became that kind of dystopian idea where you have, for these people going for harvesting and 2 aren't. And that I honestly probably toyed with for like a couple of weeks until I really jumped in. I think I got the first 3 chapters, each perspective of the 3 main characters, and from there I was like, okay, I've got an idea. I need to plan it out. And from there I went and did more plotting. But I'm still I bounce between plotting and pantsing where I like to get a general idea. I lay out a skeleton, and I had a skeleton for the book, but then, certain things show up and it's just like, oh, I love that. I'm definitely going with that. Like today, I've been writing book 2, and there was a scene that there were things that needed to happen, but there wasn't so much interest. Like there was, I put myself in the shoes of a reader thinking, okay, if this was here, what is something that I really get me? It doesn't have to be a plot twist, it has to be something emotionally gripping, and that's what I did. And so like I said, I had the basis of the idea, toyed with it for a few weeks, and then as soon as I had those first 3 chapters, though they did evolve, I just really went with them.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, that's cool. Um, who is your favorite character in your book? I know that you have to
Yeah.
pick your own child, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's really unique. Fenrir is like what people would usually think, and like especially in this book, Fenrir feels like the main character, but he's not my favorite. I really like Yetrick because Yetrick is me. If you read him, there's a lot of mannerisms that I put in there. Like my younger brother started reading this book. He's 16, and he was reading certain lines to my mom, and she was just laughing because they're like, "This is Kaden. Like that is that." And that was kind of cool. It's kind of cool to explore me as a person and what I would do there. Yetrick is pretty passive, and he's in a very gray area most of this book. And when he makes mistakes, it's not because he's a bad person. It's because he's trying to do what's right, and he doesn't really know. He's following the voices that are telling him what is right. And it's just cool. I get to explore my flaws, and it's kind of enlightening in a way. And then Aerie, the female main protagonist, her flaws are my flaws. Like I try to think of my flaws and take them to an extreme. Being a perfectionist, she is the most extreme perfectionist. And readers that read her, I love when I think my first reviewer said that she walked in the book, Aerie was her least favorite, ended up being like her favorite, second favorite. I want people, like without spoiling too much, I want people to hate Aerie when they go into the book and love her by the end. And she's just a character that has I'm trying not to explore it, to spoil too much, but like give interest. But she has a backstory. She's one of the only characters with a backstory that I explore. And it's a lot based on the trials my wife and I were going on at the time. And you can kind of see that, like I'm not going to give it away because it'll give a big part of her identity away. But these characters kind of allowed me to explore experiences I was going in my life. And that's why I think I love Aerie so much and Yetrick, because they are a lot more of me. Whereas Fenrir was more of, I put a lot of my dad in Fenrir. And all these characters are accumulation of people that I've met and characters that I've read about. And so it was kind of fun to write of, someone dear and close to me as a character in the book.
Nice. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Bear with me a second here. Let's try it. All right, I can do that. Sorry. Okay. Still getting used to StreamYard, guys. You gotta just give me just a couple seconds. But all right, so that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about your favorite characters just now. What is your favorite part of the writing process? Do you love kind of exploring some of these? We'd be experimenting. Do you love
Mm-hmm.
exploring some of these characters? Do you love kind of? Sounds like you don't do a big outline, so you're not loving like you're creating a big plot. What is the part that you're like? Do you love the editing
Mm-hmm.
process? Tell me. What is your favorite bit
Oh,
of the process?
not editing. editing is a drafting is definitely the best. Like today, I don't get writer's block too much because I will just write, and I accept that later some of this stuff might be cut out. Um, and like today, I guess would be a bit of my writer's block. Got a couple hundred words out, and it was moving slowly. But I love when I get to put ideas that I've been thinking about finally to page. So it's like this chapter, I've got to figure out things, but then I know that this next character has something I'm so excited to write about. And I really like when I make connections where you know, this book starts off, you have three separate characters, three separate lives. And when you start connecting things, it is so much fun. And like, if you've heard me talk before, I love, yeah, exactly right there. Like, that is so true. Um, but I love plot twists, and I'm not the kind of person that's going to kill every character and just make plot twists for the heck of it. Like, I will use them when they're necessary, but when there's a shocking reveal, I'm just like, oh yeah, this is so good. I'm so cool. And just like there are moments like where if I were a reader, like
Yeah.
I think people would enjoy it.
Right.
Like my dad got one of the first copies of the early proofs. And like whenever I go over to my parents' place, I'll be like, oh, you're about to get to a good part. Like I'm so excited to hear what you have to say. And I think it's just things like that, things that get me as excited as a reader. Whereas, you know, like, of course, I love developing characters, but sometimes those aren't exciting. Political intrigue, I love so much. And if people might know this after they read the book, there's a big battle, but battle scenes aren't my favorite. I think that, you know, like battle on the mental plane is so much more enjoyable. If anyone's reading Sun Eater right now, I love some of the Sun Eater stuff, but honestly, when there's just battles going on, I just zone out and it's like, okay, tell me what happens in the end. I'm good without the rest of it. And that's what I like. There's a lot of talking that I do in this book, but it's never just like monotonous, lame stuff. Like it's plotting, like good things. Like give me more of that Littlefinger, more of Tyrion Lannister, stuff like that. But you know, you're not going to be, if you want battle and action, you're going to have it. It has to be in there. And there are some times where it's fun to write like big, cool battles. Like book 2, battles get much better. So yeah, I think it's just exploring, making connections, and like just like putting plot points and seeing how they all connect. And it's like, oh yes, this is why I write.
Nice. Okay, so in general, I want with the our chat tonight, I want to talk about the book, but then I want to shift to talk about more about you personally. But I am gonna ask a little bit of a. You mentioned that you were writing today. How are you able to squeeze in writing? As I know you have a day job of your nurse, but I know a lot of nurses also work 312s, which seems like a pretty nice gig for writing. But tell me how you're able to squeeze it in.
Yeah. So my book, it features gastroenterology, the GI system.
Well, I didn't mean squeeze it in that way. I get
no. Here, get this. And I work in the endoscopy department, so with colonoscopies, things like that. So it's like I get to learn lore about my book that I can put in it later on. Like it's like, funny. this patient has Crohn's disease, and it's like, am I going to put someone with Crohn's disease in book 2? Of course. And
of course.
Like I just got to get that representation now. But a lot of it. So before I started working as a nurse, I worked at a call center from home, and it was pretty slow. And so I did so much writing there. And so it's different. Whereas like, there I had a goal of 4 pages a day. Right now it's more like 1,000. I don't really even know what that translates to. I worked 4/10s. So Wednesdays and weekends. Okay. So like Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm off work. And Sunday is more reserved for like family time, but Saturdays and especially Wednesdays, because my wife's working Wednesdays are writing days. And so a lot of it during work, it's a gamble. I really like having 1,000 words a day. Like NaNoWriMo was a really good chance to see kind of where I was at. But it doesn't always happen. So I EC Greaves, I've watched a bunch of his interviews with Beard of Darkness, and he really inspired me. So I started writing on my phone. Um, most of my phone writing is for a secret project that I've been working on. Just because I don't feel like that one is as consequential for like book two. I like to sit on my computer, throw on some like intense classical music, and just write away where I can see it on a computer screen. But I shifted a little more to like working on that one a little
Mhm.
in during NaNoWriMo because it's like, okay, I need to hit 1,600 words a day. And I have days where I get home at 4. I have days where I get home at 7. I can't always get that in. And there's some days where I don't have any writing time at home. So I have to figure out a way to get it in there. And so, like right now, Bert asked early on, sorry, Bert, I am not going to have book two out by the summer. Ambitious Caden, I want out by the end of the year. More realistic, probably like I'm shooting. I think January could work next year. Very like it could happen next summer. I want it out as soon as possible. I'm going to give it everything I can, but it is a lot of like drafting isn't as bad as a problem. And now I have a ground where I can figure out editing and stuff like that a lot easier. So it's going to be quicker, but it's not going to be this summer. Hopefully, maybe by the end of the year, we'll see. But like right now on my Google Doc, because I'm so lame like that, I write on Google Docs. I'm like 150 pages in, which translates probably to like 200 something with the font that it's at. And that one's not too bad. I can scroll to the bottom of my phone and start typing away. But once I get into like 300, like
Yeah,
it's
Google
gonna
Docs are
break.
no good for giant
No,
files. Yeah, yeah.
no, I need like a minute for my computer to sit and go to the bottom. And that's kind of
Mhm.
why I started writing other stuff like short story. Like I haven't really done a ton of short stories, but that's why I started the like side project that I'm
Same.
doing because I can just, I can get at it. So that's honestly it. Lots of phone writing.
Yeah.
And I do try to do phone writing to avoid social media, but it's kind of impossible when you're having to market your
And
book.
right, promote a book. Yeah, social media important that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's just
no, I feel you.
a
Yeah,
blend.
right, right. That's so, but you're not writing like short little books, right? How long are you hoping to make book two? How many
Um,
words? Tell me word count.
yeah, word count, 250 would be ideal.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's a big book. Yeah, I mean, even if you were just doing 1,000 words a day, that's 250 days of just drafting.
Yeah.
So, we'd love to get you a book sooner, Bert, but believe us, like it's tough, man. Um, I want to
And
talk a little bit.
yeah.
Go ahead. No, no, no. Go ahead.
Yeah. So book one was actually 220 at first,
Mm-hmm.
and that had a lot of fluff. So ideally get to 250. And with how my writing has improved, I could see going around like 200, but I want it longer. And I add at least 3 point of views. So it's like if I don't want it to be super saturated, I have to make it longer to give everyone's story their justice. And so, like, I think I posted it somewhere. Bert, to answer your question, my joyful goal this year is to publish book two, a second novella, like novella number one's happening spring. That's like down. And secret project trying to hit like 90,000, 100,000, like just pretty short but good. The only stipulation is editing. Like I can finish draft one, all those, no problem. But yeah, we'll see.
So I want to talk a little bit, process inside baseball. Yeah, so your editing process. I know that you worked with Sarah Chorn for book
Hmm.
one. So two, are you planning to work with Sarah Chorn for book two, or do you planning to work? And then also, what was the process of working with her specifically like? Because my understanding is that she does development edits at the same time that she's doing line edits, which I think is
Hmm.
honestly, I haven't heard of anyone else that's doing it quite that way. Not so much. So yeah, tell me what your editing process was like, how you liked it, and what you learned having gone through the whole editing process once, what works for you in it. Because I feel like, I don't know if you feel the same way, but my opinion is that there's so much advice out there for drafting and tips for drafting and getting better with you, like, and being more productive with your drafting. But like when it came time for me to edit, I was like, what do I even do? I didn't know what to focus on. I didn't know how to
Hmm.
you know. But I feel like I have a little bit better handle on it now. But I'm love to hear your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, that's what I like that she gave me well-rounded. People that have been following me earlier on, I wanted to publish in October, and Sarah has been like one of the most patient people with me. She gave me this out of a grant that I got from the Indie Fantasy Fund, and she did way more than I could ever ask for. Like she gave me pretty much two full editing ones where we got to a certain point and we decided that it'd be best to stop there, me go through the beginning, clean it all out one more time. And it was so much smoother just because it took a lot. Like I was learning so much. And that's one of the reasons I think I get the next book out quicker because editing will go a lot faster. Went very slowly because I had so many kinks to work out and just so many things that like, it was a master class in learning that I tell people that my earliest beta readers that read early Elegy is a completely different book than it is now. This one is clear, it is more direct. There are so many better choices and not as many far-fetched ideas. It just makes more sense. And I'm sure people said they liked that, the first one, but like I was talking to someone today that read most of the first edition and that he's going through this and he's like, chapter one's so different, like just getting like right to the action and it's good. And I know that was a lot of things that I kind of would just like kind of wander and
Right.
fill in random bits of world building that didn't really matter. And
Gotta hook
then
them in
it
the
was,
beginning, man. Gotta grab
yeah,
them right in the beginning. Yeah.
exactly. And so I remember it was pretty funny because when I first had my 220 page 220,000 word manuscript, I was like, okay, I can do a quick editing pass, then we'll like go through, and then people are like, you have to have it under 150,000, like, and I was like, that's impossible. Which it doesn't have to be for everyone, but that did me a lot of good. I have a much better book because of it. So yeah, she gave me a well-rounded developmental and then just lines and just basically gave me the whole package. So, and I really like that. So I'm going with her for book two. I'm hoping to get her my prequel novella the next few weeks. Just she's a little busy right now, so when she can, and like she's just been a really great editor, really patient. That's all I could ask for because I was kind of a bum. I had so many problems and I was just eager, like kid just being like, I want people to read my book, read my book, read my book. But definitely now it's so much better. And editing is hard. And it was very painful that last bit because it just like sometimes you'd go to the computer and I tried to not look too far ahead because she sent chunks and it'd be like, okay, this chapter, glance through it. Okay, it's just a couple problems. And then I'd go to another one where it's like, there's a big fundamental problem that I have to just take out. And that's honestly what I think I'll get most of the kinks out for my second pass of book two before I even get it to her, that it should just be a routine good job. So yeah, she's been really great.
Yeah. Nice. Good to hear. All right. So, real quick, this one's a quickie. How many books are planned in the series?
Okay, so we have Beast Call, which is the prequel novella that's coming out soon. So if you're counting prequels, it's going to be prequel book, prequel book, prequel book, prequel. So trilogy with a novella in between each of them, and then a novella closing out. So,
Okay,
um,
so three full lengths and three novellas. And what's a rough word count on your novellas?
novella is about like 20K.
Okay, all right.
So
I thought for a second I thought you were gonna, well, I mean, 250,000 for the full length, so
no,
my novellas are like 60. I'd be like,
yeah,
no. All
like
right.
so I'm really excited for people to read my novella because I wrote it after I wrote it during one of the, like, I think one of my beta readers, one of my later beta readers was reading it, and I
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of fun with it. And Sarah fixed a fundamental problem in the book that made the ending of the prequel novella hit so well that it's just like I'm so excited for people to see this. And around that time, I was playing Elden Ring, and I just kind of wanted some like big, cool monsters. I wanted some just fun stuff like that, and I kind of threw it in there. It's different. It's fun. It's not a comedy. I don't write comedies, but I have a pretty comedic character in there that I'm kind of interested to see how people will take him. Um, and then novella 2 is going to be kind of like it's not a direct continuation, but it's something I want to have a lot of fun with. Essentially, if you put Pokemon in this world, people are battling with monsters. I wanted to do that. And so if I have a ton of fun with that one's going to be pretty long. But definitely not like a really long, like 20K is what I'm looking at for novellas, maybe 30. I don't know. It's just whatever I end up with. I have ideas of word counts, but I'm never
Sure.
completely set on it.
Yeah, right. No, I watch a lot of Brandon Sanderson stuff, and I can't remember where he said this, but like he knows his word count kind of just from like the building blocks that he's putting together. And I'm like, maybe I could get there after writing for 20 years, but I'm not there right now,
Yeah, no.
right? I'm with Bert. I'm intrigued also. I love the monsters and stuff. I've got
Yeah.
in the book I'm writing right now, I've got a character that's kind of funny also, and at least in chapter one, funny character happens to be a lizard. So
There you
you
go.
can check out that sometime.
Yeah.
Um, but let's talk a little bit about book marketing too, kind of sticking in the weeds, talking some inside baseball. You have a little bit of buzz around you, so enough buzz that you were able to get a fully funded Kickstarter before you were even published. So how did you do that?
Yeah.
What has your marketing been, and what are your plans moving forward?
When people ask what I did I think the best decision was going to Twitter. And that really integrated me in the book community. I had a couple connections with early discords, just from talking to indie authors when I was trying to get in the sphere. But I think a lot of it was because Little Ambitious Kaden thought that he was going to be published in October, and I got Fanfi Addict to do my cover reveal in like June. And so I had a long period where my cover was open. And honestly, like I can see the benefits of doing a really early cover reveal, whereas like sometimes it might be nice to have, like a couple months before just to generate the hype. But I had, like 7 months pretty much where people knew that I had a book coming out. I wasn't just kind of floating around on there. And a lot of it was just hyping up other people's books, reading indie books, talking about how much I love them, and then just integrating myself in the community where people are like, oh yeah, I love Caden. Like he's got great point of views. They're like, they just like think, oh yeah, like, oh, thank you for like doing all this and like sharing it. Like Sons of Darkness right here. If any of you guys have read this, I fell in love with it when I first found out about it. And before I even knew what the book had, I was championing it on Instagram, like sharing it in tons of stories. I love the book, and the author, super cool guy. I've had lots of chats with him, and he accepted an arc of my book. And like I got Library of a Viking to be one of my early readers, which I was surprised that he read it like that. But I was just like, interacting with his channel a lot. Sometimes I'd like comment on his things and like just have little conversations there. And it's just all about making those connections. So when I was ready to launch my Kickstarter, I had a lot of people share it. Like in general, the indie community is very willing to promote other people's work.
Yeah.
But
Book people are great people.
yeah, and like the connections I had with Lord TBR Fanfi, he just kind of helped like push that forward. Like I was on like Fanfi's most anticipated of 2024, like top front picture right there. And I was just like, whoa. And
Yeah.
and that was it. It was just like getting noticed, and that people knew my name enough, and that I was trying to just talk up and like praise everyone in the community. Like I loved all the books that I read, and I just talked about them if I loved them, so that people are like, okay, this guy's positive, so why not help him out? And it worked out. And I think people are generally willing to help with Kickstarters just because they see that as like a cool idea. And I personally like Kickstarters because there's lots of goodies usually, especially like board games. I'm I like board games a lot too. And a lot of board games come with like exclusive little things. And that kind of idea fascinated me. So I was like, okay, we give out stickers, bookmarks. And I've talked a little bit before, but I'd love to do a Kickstarter for book 2. And if I can generate more hype, whereas like, if this will have a really big launch with a lot of funding, I'd love to do some really cool merch with it, but it's all dependent on just like what we get. So
Sure.
in essence, being a friend to people and then
Yeah.
they're a friend you back.
Yeah, definitely worked out for you. You got 400% funded with your Kickstarter. Pretty sick for a book that
Yeah.
wasn't even released yet from a debut author. I mean, you're
Yeah.
doing good. We definitely are gonna have to talk board games a little bit. Have you
Oh
thought of?
yeah.
I bet you've had this idea because you're ambitious. I bet you've had the idea of like maybe doing some kind of board game related with one of your universes, maybe this universe. Have you?
Uh-huh. Yeah. So my dad's like a huge gamer, and he has been like kind of toying with an idea of a game that he's like, okay, we can like get that in there. So we'll see in the future if anything comes of it. But it'd be really cool. Like I'd love to partner with anyone to do things like that, or
Brother
like I
Wise,
don't know
if you're listening. Right.
exactly. It's like, we've got that. And like, have you ever heard of Red Raven Games?
No.
Like they're not super big, but like it's like a not like they are located in Utah, but it's not a local company. Like they're out and about.
Mm-hmm.
And how I am with the book community, that is my father in the board game community. Like he has all these random connections with all these people that,
Nice.
so maybe something will come of it one day, or like there's a board game called Call to Adventure that has a Name of the Wind expansion.
Right.
And if anything like that could ever happen, cool. I an idea that I did consider for Kickstarter, maybe for book 2, is doing like 3D printed minis for certain characters.
That's sick.
Yeah, just like things like that. Maybe.
See, I think that would work really
Mhm.
well for book 2 too.
Yeah.
Book 2 also, rather than like book 1, because like by book 2 you have people are familiar with some of the characters, whereas if it
Oh
was
yeah.
like buy this mini for this character that you've never seen and never met and have no idea, you know what I mean? Doesn't work as well for book 1, I think, but that's cool.
Exactly.
All right, we're gonna get back a little bit to marketing, but we're gonna stick on board games for just a minute. What's like one of your favorite board games?
I really love Dune Imperium.
Okay, all right.
That's super fun. Just like looking at my shelf right now. I do enjoy D&D. D&D is really fun.
Sure.
Everdell's a good one. There's one called Five Tribes.
I was at a board game shop and I was gonna play Everdell, but like it was a loaner copy that the
Uh-huh.
board game shop has, and it was missing some pieces. Have you played Pandemic?
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
fun one.
yeah, and Ticket to Ride I got right here also.
Classic Ticket to Ride. Yeah, you can't
All
go wrong with
right.
that.
Yep. I love the cooperative games like Pandemic.
Hmm.
Good times. Good times.
Yeah, I love like lots of like I love just like general board games, but when there's a fun IP, like I have the like Brand Sanderson's The Reckoners board game that's like a co-op game. And so it's just like super cool to see the art. Same as like Red Rising. I got the Red Rising card game, and like just seeing the characters like, oh look, it's him, it's him, it's him.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got an idea for like a little like print and play little tabletop game that I will integrate into the trilogy that I'm writing.
That's
We'll
super
try to
cool.
get that sometime. Yeah, we'll have to discuss that more a little bit later.
Hmm.
But all right, just a little bit more kind of what's next for getting more eyeballs on your books? What are some of your marketing plans moving forward?
Yes. Right now, a lot of my focus is on TikTok. ZSD
Mm,
Amani, he's got the 35K followers, and so I've had a couple chats with him. I don't have to chat
yeah.
with him this week, but like last time we sat down had to talk, I was probably at like 300, and I'm about 50 followers away from 1,000. So
Hell yeah. Nice.
like I'm really grinding that. I have a consecutive posting schedule, and so I want to have a lot of um things there. Just like I want to do a TikTok shop. Um, and even though like, I don't even use TikTok to like look at things. Like I literally just use it to post. If I'm gonna watch those dumb videos, I watch them on Instagram because I don't know why. But that's a focus. After the Kickstarter, I'll probably push physicals a little more. If you're watching this, like I don't want to make Kickstarter people jealous, but I got the approval, so print copies of Elegy are now available on Amazon. I'm not really going to talk about it too much until probably the end of the week. Thing is that like if you back the Kickstarter, don't feel bad because your Kickstarter versions, the Ingram one, it's going to be better and you're going to get goodies with it. And honestly, the most thing that I'm excited for, that I was even more excited for the release, is doing a Barnes and Noble signing.
Oh,
So
sick.
I've got a couple of stores locally that I really want to do, but Barnes and Noble, there is one. If any of you heard of Provo, Utah, that's where I went to college. That's where BYU is. That's where Brandon Sanderson teaches. Because of that, there is an area that they call like the Sanderson Bay. That's just like kind of a shelf of Sanderson stuff, and you can go there and like a lot of times just like pick up a book and it's a signed copy. Like he'll just go there and randomly sign things. Like I got the Emperor's Soul signed by him, just cover price. I bought it there. So the idea is like, I love Brandon Sanderson and I'm hoping to hit his audience. So ideally go have a signing there and just pitch to people like this for fans of Brandon Sanderson. Here's what my book's about. Interesting. Buy it. And so really want to get that. I don't know if any of you have seen things about a newer it's a YA book called Sky's End. The author actually he went viral because he's a school teacher and he pushed for so many years to get accepted and he got published. Well, he teaches at the middle school that I actually went to. So I've messaged him a little bit, just asking some good local stores around here. And I've just kind of been following his posts. So I'm like, okay, this one looks good. I'm going to add it to the list. So a lot of local pushing I'm really excited for. I want to do a convention later this year. FanX is like Salt Lake City's Comic-Con. And
right.
Ideally, I would love to do Dragonsteel because it is really close by. And I think that having Stormlight 5's release, I feel like Dragonsteel will be a huge year.
Yeah, it's good.
And if I can just get there, I think just having an eye there would be really great. So
right.
That's kind of what I'm looking at.
No, I think they're planning to make Dragonsteel this year the biggest it's ever been.
Yeah, so we'll see what that gets. And honestly, if I go and break even by $1, or if I lose $10, it's all worth it just to get my name out. So we'll see how I can do with that.
Quick little thing, Kaden, if you can try not to put your hand on your cheek.
Yes.
It's actually messing your microphone a
weird.
tiny bit, right? Well, I think you're using the microphones there, right? Yeah. So
yep,
it's not a huge difference, but it's way better without it. So
yeah, I won't do it.
All right. So you're working on book 2. You're hoping for maybe, ideally release later this year. You're going to go do some cons. You're doing the marketing. You're building up TikTok, all good stuff. Love the trajectory. What's the best advice you've ever heard or received for your creative work, your writing career?
I think it is just to get it to other people's eyes, to get a critique group if you can. Just I had one for book 1, but maybe I'm hoping the break-ins we can just kind of work together for book 2, and if people want to beta read it. But a lot of it, like book 1, I had one that I would just kind of go, and just getting people to look through it, I think is really important. No matter what your work is, because if you would have asked me a year ago what I thought about Elegy after draft 2, I thought it was the coolest thing ever, and I would have wanted it published. But no, and it's like a platitude. People say, take your time, don't rush it. You don't have to don't rush it. And it's very hard advice for me to accept too, is that, I have to take time. But like those are the things that I've really appreciated from people. But like if I was going to tell people besides like marketing stuff for writing wise, just use spare minutes. Like I think that having a phone to write there or like jot down ideas while like in a little notebook, just be thinking about the book a lot and think about, the next few chapters. You don't need a plan of the whole book right away, but I think that that's kind of how I combat writer's block is I know these next three chapters for me, that means it's three different characters I'm looking at. If I can't get character one's down right away, I'll start character two's chapter and go back. But just to always have these ideas going in your mind, to always just be thinking about it and have something to write ideas down. Just always be writing.
Yeah. All right. I like it. I mean, boy, the phone writing. I mean, tough to do, but I think it's
It's
good.
very tough.
It's right because I know myself. I'm like, oh, I want a session. I want time to sit down and think and whatever. And like, especially father, sometimes that's just not going to happen. But yeah, it's good advice. I like that. Um,
And just
all
likewise,
right.
like you can't get hung up when you don't have times to write. Like it's always like, even if I'm just going to do something with my family, play a board game, it's simple time that is very meaningful. And in the back of my mind, I might be thinking like, I could have spent that hour writing a bunch. It
Right.
doesn't matter. I'm living life. You got to
Right.
live your life outside writing.
Yes. Yeah. And right. And I feel you, and I agree. But I also agree with the point you made earlier of like it's sort of
Yeah.
tough to like take the time and slow down, especially because you'll see some people that are just cranking books out, and you're like,
Oh
man,
yeah.
I wish I could. But like, it's like, no, 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 no. I'm gonna be doing so much better if I take the time I need to put out the best book that I can, and also live my life along the way so I don't get burned out. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. All right, all right. Let's get to know Caden a little bit more. Time for other questions, not necessarily related to the book. First of all, you speak Slovenian?
I do. So I
How
speak
did Go
Slovenian.
ahead. Is like you have a family in Slovenia or
No, so I served a mission for my church in Slovenia for 2 years. So I lived as a Slovenian for 2 years, and my wife is Russian. We met in Utah, so it's not like I always think people like when I first tell them my wife is Russian, they're like, is like the mail order bride a real thing? No, but I use that, and like her English is impeccable, but I did learn Russian and that helped a lot with it. So trilingual, there we go.
Nice. Wow. Oh wow. So you speak Slovenian and Russian and English.
Yeah, I speak Russian a lot more than Slovenian. I just don't have as many opportunities to use it. It's like, Slovenia has 2 million people, and but Russian, like I use it every day. In a
With your
couple of weeks.
wife, I guess.
Yeah, like we'll just go back and forth. Honestly, like
Wow.
it's super fun because we'll just be like with family. And if we want to have our secret conversation, it's like our secret language. And it's super fun because we can say whatever we want. Like sometimes she'll just like completely talk in Russian. I'll just respond in English and we'll just
Yeah,
talk in
and you're
English usually.
right.
Because her
My
English is much better than my Russian. But
my mother is bilingual and my grandmother's bilingual. They both speak Spanish, my mother.
uh-huh.
Um I never learned, but they would like they have such fluency, and I think this is true of a lot of people with very fluent bilingual people. They would absolutely like even mid sentence they would switch between the languages, especially if you like what's that word, and then you think about it, in English and that
Yeah,
sort of thing. I'm jelly, man. That's pretty cool. But like,
it's
so
fun.
you went to Slovenia on the mission trip, and like at that time, did you know the language, or you hadn't known it when you went?
No, so we had like a training center we went to. So I was there learning it for about 2 months.
There's a
And then
training? I guess I shouldn't be so. I mean, yeah, our
yeah.
church is like the most organized organization. Okay, there's a training center for you. All right.
Yeah. So, and I mean, like some people, if they're in Spanish, it'll be a couple weeks, but I learned it like there's like 2 months. Then I got there, and as you can expect, Americans teaching a language is not the same thing as living in a country where people have accents. And Slovenia is renowned for having 50 dialects, even though you can drive across the country in
50
like
bit. That's crazy.
an hour, like 2 hours. You can go across the whole country.
Can I tell you, one of my challenges in learning Spanish is that
Mhm.
I was living in Southern California at the time, and there, like, people predominantly are speaking Spanish in like the way that Mexicans speak Spanish, right? Cool. But my mom, uh, like, went to college in Puerto Rico, and she was originally Argentine, and her
Mhm.
father was Argentine, and her mother was Puerto Rico, and like they did not speak the way that I was being taught, like the way that the
Yeah.
Spanish, the Mexican style Spanish. And I'm like, that's not what they're showing. And they're like, well, that's not the word we use for that. I'm like, like you can't, like, man, the
Yeah.
dialects, like they get great. Learning another language is hard. I don't know how you
Yeah.
did, like, just decide to throw Russian in there on the side. Good for you. That's crazy.
Well, it's kind of fun.
So
So like, because her parents came here for our wedding and like for a trip, and
right.
so I really got a chance to learn it. And then like in like 3 weeks, we're going on vacation with her and her family, and it's only gonna be Russian. So it's just like sometimes where I just kind of get forced into it, and it definitely helps.
Word. Okay. All right. So but you went on this mission trip to Slovenia after the training and learning the language. You're there in the country for how long?
2 years. So well, minus 2 months. So 22 months. I would say about 6 months in the country, I felt comfortable. Um, and by the end, super comfortable. And it was super fun learning the language. And like with that and Russian, if you speak a Slavic language, you might notice certain things in my book. A lot of the characters like Yetrick, Fenmir don't have Slavic names, but they have Slavic sounds. Um, and there are a lot of words that are like I twist them a little. Like one of my favorite characters is Voln. Volk is the word for wolf in Slovene, and Voln is a kid with a wolf mask. Like I just do a lot of things that have, if I wanted to come up with a new word and couldn't really think of it, I think of it in Slovenian or Russian, change it a bit, and I get
I
there.
love it. That's pretty rad.
Hmm.
So what are you know? Well, Slovenia,
Hmm.
just a little bit to the east of Italy, right, and around that sea.
Yep.
Uh, but for a long time was part of the Roman Empire. So I imagine that there's probably some cool ruins there in Slovenia. Did you see some? I
Yeah.
went to Istanbul once, and I was just like, as an American going to a city that old, I was like, oh, there's so much history here. Was that kind of
Yeah.
your experience too?
Yeah, it was cool. So there were some museums where like they kind of go down and have this excavated Roman road. And it was super funny because Ljubljana is the capital, and there were just random times where you'd see there were just like big construction things around. And like where I live here, if there's construction, it's some random pipe in a road. They're just, excavating Russian ruins and finding coins and like things like that. So lots of stuff like that. And I, as a fantasy nerd, loved it there because there's so many castles,
Right.
and
Yes. Nice. Nice.
there's one there. So if you want to look at it, it's called Predyamski Grad, is what it's so Pred Yam, like look up
Okay.
Pred
Okay.
Jama, Predjama
I got it. I got it.
castle. It is a castle, and half of it is in a cave, and it's just the the most metal thing. It's
Dude.
so cool. And it's just like I'm going around like, oh, knights have pranced around here, and
Yeah.
it was so cool to see.
All right, all right. We're gonna continue our experimentation with StreamYard and see if I can. That sounds so cool. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think, like, if you're gonna be a fantasy nerd, you kind of, like, how are you not gonna be a little bit of a history nerd too, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. All right. Let me see. Um. So, what are some of your favorite memories? So, I'm gonna try to pull up this castle. But what are some of your favorite memories from your trip? Oh,
Just
okay.
like really getting to know a different culture. It was cool. Like, it wasn't Asia or Africa or something that seems very different. Like a lot of it looked like my life here in the States, but it's off somehow. Um,
Huh.
and these people, a lot of the contention in my book it's kind of derived from Yugoslavia. Um, you have my book, it has these six countries, states, whatever you want to call them, the courts. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they all hate each other, except for like a couple of them. And you know that I would go in Slovenia, it's right next to Serbia and Croatia. And these people were just like straight up racist to each other. They hated some of
Mm,
them. And it was so sad to see. But it just gave me a cool opportunity, you know, when like so when I meet someone from Bosnia or Serbia that hadn't had great experiences with certain Slovenes, just like really getting to empathize with them and see that. And um, so the people definitely the best thing, but the history is really cool too because it's weird to be in a place like I said the Roman ruins, whereas in America, you can go to like ancient history, which is something, but like most of the historical sites you see around here are like, oh, here's a house from 100 years ago, and it's like cool.
right.
Whereas there, it's like this is ruins from the year 1230, and it's kind of mind blowing. Like walking through castles, sure
Hmm.
they've kind of like repaired things, a lot of them, but just going back and like we had an opportunity to go to a city in called Pula in Croatia,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they have a Roman Colosseum there. And it was just like you get
Right.
to go down, see all these like ancient pots and stuff, and it's crazy.
When I again, yeah, I love the history in different places. As a fantasy nerd, I feel like the history is the fantasy stuff that we get
Hmm.
in real life. When I went to Istanbul, there's a very old. It was a uh, cathedral and then a mosque. For a while, it was a museum. I think it's back to a mosque now, but it's called the Hagia Sophia. And that like cathedral on the floor, there's like, well, first of all, it's built of a bunch of different types of marble, and that was actually a display of wealth because the different types of marble were from different areas in the world, and they all had to be
Hmm.
transported there, which is like these days you'd be like, nah, big deal, but like back then, big deal, you know? Yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy.
right. But also there's these rings of marble that were down in the ground, like a circle in the middle and a couple circles around it and some rings and whatever. And it unfortunately stanchioned off, otherwise I would have been right in that. But that area was
Hmm.
the spot where um the emperors of the Byzantine Empire were coronated right there. I'm like, right? Like, I mean, I was just sort of like painting the picture of the scene in my head of like what a giant pageant that must have been and all the, yeah, it's pretty cool. Just neat to think
Yeah,
about. And so different, yeah, like we're talking about, which is not existent in American cities at all, you know?
yeah. So, and I mean, that was the first time for me going out of the States. So it was just, it was an adventure of a lifetime.
Right? I take it. So also one more kind of personal thing, and then I want to get into media,
Hmm.
favorite media. But bro, you run marathons?
Sure do.
Dang, man. That's a long
Yeah.
way.
Uh-huh.
What's harder, running a marathon or writing a book?
Oh, writing a book. Writing a book is a marathon in a way.
Yeah.
And um like you can so easily compare it to, it look like first draft is miles 1 through 17. They go by like that. And then you get to mile 17, which is editing, and it hurts. And then you get to the last 4 miles and you're like, I'm so close to the finish, but every step I take hurts so much. And then you can breathe at the end. And so, but I think it definitely helped me a lot. Like I do, I wrestled in high school too. And a lot of just like those, like the grind mentality, working so hard is just kind of helps me really be like, oh yeah, I'm going to crank out these many words today. I'm going to go this hard. And so, yeah.
Nice, nice. All right, I'll say it here, but if you've got questions, send them because we're gonna wrap up here soon. Um, who's why you running, bro? Did you upset? That's so
I
funny.
know, like
I
that's the
love it
thing. I
though.
don't know. It's one of those things like if you get it, you get it. My morning meditation is waking up at 4:30 a.m., throwing on my headphones, going on a run in the dark where no one can bother me, and just listening to a book for like an hour. Weekends, I get like an hour and a half, like on a Saturday run, get an hour and a half to 2 hours of a book in. And just like I have just deeply ingrained memories where it's like, oh, that hill, that's where I first met Trollocs in the Wheel of Time. I know that so much. Or like just I don't know. I love, and I think it gives me those like cool positive connections with it. Like I I listen to Best Served Colds. I started it when I started my best marathon, and now it's like that book was good, but that book was so much better because I listened to 3 hours of it, got my best time, and it's like just this hard, brutal revenge story, and you're just like, oh yeah.
Sick. That's wild.
Hmm.
I'll tell you, like the runs I do, the whole run is like 4 miles.
Hmm.
You know,
Hey,
but
it's
yeah,
something.
yeah. All right, man. Last question. What's your favorite media, whether it's book or video game, movie, TV show, whatever, that you've consumed lately that you would recommend to folks?
Oh, um, I think it's been I'm gonna go and throw a couple out there. It's been a very popular name out there, but Dungeon Crawler Carl, while
Oh
listening
yeah,
to it while I run, like that is one that's like it's a movie like in my mind. So good.
that is one. Like, I mean, I saw like the cover and stuff, and I was like, stupid. But then I
It
actually like
yeah,
read the premise, and there was more like the it actually seems, because you know, you look at the cover and it just seems it doesn't take itself seriously, but then
oh
you read
yeah,
the premise and how it kind of got to this situation, and like it's like, okay, like there's enough there for me to actually maintain suspension of disbelief, and
yeah.
and then get into the story and enjoy it. I think that's yeah. So
When I
okay,
started like some of it, and I almost DNF'd it because I'm like, I'm not a big just comedy book guy. I'd rather like have a deeper story, but there's something so entertaining about it, and it has more depth later on that it's just pure entertainment. It's joy, it's fun.
right,
Um,
right.
Whereas like I've been reading in print, like I really want to read so many um indie books, but I've been going through Malazan and I like it. I I like really deep um things. Like one of my favorite TV shows is Twin Peaks, and I love it because it makes me think and because I don't get it all. If something makes me think really hard, I enjoy it more. And that's one of the things I like about Malazan. It's not my favorite series yet. I'm on book 3, and that is one that I would only recommend to like people in the book community. I would never tell a friend
Sure, you're
go
right.
read this book.
Not a light read,
Like,
right?
no. Because that's the thing. Definitely books are where I spend a lot of time. I always, what else? I really liked Justice of Kings. That's a recent one that I read. That was quite different. Richard Swan. Um, that is good. Um, I am reading One Piece. A lot of that. I love, love, love One Piece. Um,
How'd you like the?
it's
Have you seen the adaptation?
Yeah, so actually I'm a late fan. I saw the adaptation. I thought Luffy was like one of the greatest characters ever, and I started. I'm probably about a third of the way through the manga. I probably won't watch the anime just because it's like I can get through a chapter in like 7 minutes, read it on my phone, and rather than like 20-minute episode.
Sure.
So I like it because it has cool world building. Um, it's funny, but not like where it's just stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I love how they give each character like has an insanely tragic backstory. So it's over the top, but it's fun, and I I like dark stories. Like I love just like dark stories are so much fun. I don't know why. Like if it's sad and depressing, it's great. But I am an optimist. I like to be just really happy, fun person. That's why I love Luffy so much, the main character. I think he's the best like leader in any media that I've read.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've loved
Wow.
that. Trying to think what else I've watched or media that I've consumed. Like lots of reading. That's what I do most of the time.
It's a pretty good
My
list. It's a pretty good
Yeah,
list.
that's it kind of.
Very nice. All right, man. People want to check out Elegy or learn more about you. Where can they find and follow you online?
You can find me on cadenrlove.com. We don't need to go there. Kaden Love Author. One word, Kaden Love Author is my handle on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I mostly like I'll be on Instagram. That one does get a little more like actual who Kaden is. Twitter, I just go ham. That's just anything in my mind. And TikTok is an advertisement. So any could reach out to me anywhere. Like honestly, my DMs are open. I think social media's calmed down since my release. So always happy to
Nice.
help where I can.
Good stuff, man. Yeah. Well, thank you, Ryan. I appreciate you saying great chat. I hope you all
Thank you.
enjoyed, whether you're watching it now or if you watch it on replay. Subscribe to the channel because definitely going to be lots more interviews. And
Wonderful
you can
channel.
also, thank you, sir. Thank you. And if no one's told you today, you're an absolute legend.